This is the first part in an 8-part series of videos breaking down how each of the 7 rings is ruled over by their particular Prince of Hell. The Pride Ring is of course the best starting place for this, however Lucifer serves as more than just the Prince of Pride, it is really the king of all of Hell. As such, I think it's best to save Lucifer for a video about how he rules Hell as a whole, once we've established how the other princes run their own rings, serving below him. With that in mind, today I thought we'd focus on theories for how the Overlords rule the Pride Ring, as even with Lucifer being its prince, he himself hires 3 Overlords to be part of his posse and help rule it with him. Now, like I said, this is the first of what I hope to be an 8-part series about the complexity of how Hell is ruled, so please subscribe so you don't miss it, as we have a lot of cool information and ideas that only get crazier as we go further down. Now, each ring of Hell seems to have at least one species of demon that is sort of the dominant species in its ring, and we'll be deep diving into a lot of them as we explore the other rings in those future videos. But the Pride Ring doesn't have any native species that seem to make up large bulks of its population that didn't migrate from other rings. While not all imps today are from Wrath, I theorize Wrath is where the species of imp originally came from, as Succubus seems to come from the Lust Ring, with evidence other species being related to a particular ring or its prince as well. I think it is possible that another sentient species may have existed in the Pride Ring at some point, but as the first Earthborn sinners began to manifest in Hell, they would begin to outcrowd them. The sinners are restricted to the Pride Ring, a rule I believe to be put in place by Lucifer, who wishes to have all the human souls for himself, though I think other princes might appreciate this rule because of the immortality of Earthborn sinners. The natural-born citizens of Hell are much easier to control and manipulate, what with their shorter lifespans. With sinners pouring in from Earth en masse, an early sentient species in the Pride Ring was likely either driven out entirely, or perhaps slowly overpowered and pushed to extinction over time, just as humans tend to do in real life on Earth. Regardless of if a species was pushed out or made extinct, a lot of other species of Hell likely noticed the inherent power that the sinners had. Their numbers would only ever grow until the annual exterminations were put in place, and with them being immortal, they would make plans that would last entire lifetimes for lower species like Imp and Succubus. This is why these immortal sinners seem to rank higher in Hell's hierarchy than the native species, other than the ones that have attained status of Overlord themselves. These human sinners would generally be ruled by Lucifer, of course, but based on Vaggy's story in the pilot, it would seem that Overlords rose to power early on, and have been the ones controlling the sinners and the Pride Ring for much of its history. I believe Hell to have been technologically stunted for a lot of its history. As while Earth would develop a lot of technology over thousands of years, Overlords who had been in place for who knows how long were likely enforcing archaic lifestyles upon the peoples, ones that exploit and control them the same way the Overlords still do to this day, but with less technology and seemingly less freedom. The big change that occurred was when Alistair came to Hell and began toppling over those pre-existing Overlords. I imagine this is something that happened here and there in Hell's history, and like with Alistair, the entire slate probably wasn't wiped clean, but rather enough Overlords are knocked over from power that newer younger Overlords could rise up, bringing with them the technological innovations of their time on Earth. When Alistair knocked over those pre-existing Overlords, it allowed for new ones to take over, like the 3 Vs, who would start to enslave citizens of Hell in a more modern way. This story begins with Vox, who seemed to rise to power in the 60s, bringing with him the innovation of television. Being a TV-themed demon, he likely worked in the industry while alive, bringing all the information he needed with him to revolutionize Hell when he died. It also gives him the power to travel through screens, watch people through screens, and quite possibly it gives him control over the actual airwaves in the TV industry, stopping others from taking over the business by just simply having good ideas to broadcast. As TV killed radio in real life, TV began to eclipse radio in Hell, which as far as we can tell, is entirely under the control of Alistair through his demonic powers, the same way TV is under Vox's power. Alistair idealizes the time he came from, so likely runs it no differently than a news show in the 1940s, which very few people of Hell would have reason to tune into in the modern era. Seeing how Vox replaced Alistair, he would begin to fear himself being replaced, and decided to continue changing and adapting with the times. This would start with his relationship to Valentino, who would become an overlord of the adult film industry in Hell. He seemed to have died in the 70s and would have brought the ideas of the early adult film industry with him into Hell. Vox and Valentino would become something of a couple, but as seen on their Instagram accounts, the two would constantly get into fights, with Valentino breaking Vox's face screen, though the two always make up. As the decades went by, Vox would continue to grow by helping other sinners in Hell find their footing as Overlords, bringing innovations from Earth with them that hadn't been popularized in Hell yet and only helped to grow Vox's businesses. This would lead to him and Valentino becoming fathers of sorts to Velvet, an overlord of the social media who acts as a daughter to the two. Vox would use his screen tech and Velvet's ideas to create Voxtagram. However, on Blitz's phone, we only see an app for Sinstagram, which I assume to be the same thing, perhaps rebranded. In addition to this, I like to think she inspired his transition from traditional TV to streaming, which he went on to call Voxflix. TV, adult films, and social media are the three key ways to control a modern and technologically based society. It is a tool that simultaneously allows you to better control people, but also gives the impression that you have the freedom and prosperity that technology can bring, with the cell phone quickly becoming a sign of supposedly developing nations. Through Voxtagram, Vox has perfected mind control through narrative storytelling. All of the Instagram posts discussing Voxtagram bring it up offhandedly as something to do at the end of the day when bored. All of them have a similarly depressing tone, mentioning Voxflix but not feeling confident that they will find something to watch despite the endless stream of options. This is a tactic used by a lot of modern streaming services for producing quantity over quality. Before they would produce it themselves, services like Netflix would just buy as much indie content as they could. It would as often be so bad that no one would actually watch it, but that didn't matter to Netflix. All that mattered was them giving the impression that they have an endless catalog of things you can watch, even if you'll only be able to enjoy a small fraction of it across all of its many genres. In Hell, this is supposed to give the impression that you have luxury, that you have excess, that you aren't truly enslaved because you have this affordable service with never-ending amounts of entertainment you can spend all day watching, even if your pay allows you to afford little else in terms of entertainment in life. Additionally, the content itself would be written specifically to reprogram the way that demons think. Humans are able to acknowledge consciously that something they see on TV is fake, but subconsciously their brain interprets the series as real events, which has a complex series of psychological effects on viewers. Your brain naturally wants to emulate the behavior of people you see as successful or desirable, so you will also be successful and desirable like them. Thus, people begin to emulate the blurred impression of what characters in TV and movies you are supposed to find successful and desirable as a viewer. Because the consequences in a movie are theoretical and are based on an idea someone is trying to impart instead of a statistical reality, the viewer ends up emulating ideas that are often detrimental to a real-life place in society. It is this portrayal of intelligent people as nerdy social outcasts incapable of fun or normalcy that has convinced a lot of people that doing good in school is simply not cool and very difficult. This is just one example of how Vox could easily create programming that portrays certain people acting in certain ways across various species in Hell, including sinners. In Hell, most anything you can imagine is legal, with drugs being available in vending machines on streets. This kind of freedom makes drug addiction all the more likely, but for any holdouts, they could easily be convinced by characters in TV being shown using them as fun and cool. This is largely attributed to the rise of popularity in things like smoking because of their inclusion in early American television and even again later on Netflix. In addition to his TV empire, Vox would end up controlling the adult film industry and social media through Valentino and Velvet. All future technological industries would require his help, not just with him having power in the industries already, but because of his control over screens that he seems to naturally carry as an overlord. Adult films are among the easiest ways to control a population, as it allows you to reshape a person's sexuality, and like the easily available drugs in Hell, is extremely addictive. The adult film industry preys on an aspect of our humanity that we can't simply turn off, and with the sinners being immortal, there is a never-ending rabbit hole of weird interests for a viewer to fall into. Social media, meanwhile, is well known to exacerbate a person's mental health issues on even the most positive platforms, with most algorithms naturally finding a way to milk viewership over things that cause emotional distress instead of positive interaction. Like in real life, the native species of Hell are lost in a never-ending sea of evil people's opinions being directed at them with negative intention, all while succumbing to the same vicious rage cycle that they themselves are a victim to. And through all this, who knows what kind of narrative the Overlords are able to push to better control the people, and keep them arguing with each other instead of engaging in meaningful conversation about how to stop the Overlords. These are just 3 of the Overlords in the show, with many more known and who knows how many existing in the background of the world. Each controls their own industry, and some are less exploitative than others, I imagine, but it makes sense that Vox, Valentino, and Velvet are primary antagonists in the series, as they control 3 industries that can truly harm people in the modern era. But what do you guys think? Are there other important ways the Overlords are controlling demons that I didn't consider here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget to subscribe for part 2 of the series, or if you want to see it already, consider joining our Early Access membership club, where it and other parts of the series are going to be posted a lot earlier than they will appear on the channel. See you guys next time.